I'm Erica Lukes, host of UFO Classified. For me, life isn't simply black and white. Life is full of many unknowns. It is my goal to travel the world and to work with the world's leading experts in the hopes of making groundbreaking discoveries. Join me on UFO Classified Friday nights at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on KCOR.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Compasses spinning, people being warned off a property at certain times, electrical malfunctions, medical injuries, significant medical injuries, strange MRIs taking places where people that are working for Bigelow Aerospace are sent off to a strange clinic in Reno to be tested, urine tests. There is so much going on at Skinwalker Ranch. And just now we're beginning to truly weed through the narrative that we've been given for the past 2 decades to uncover the truth, what really was taking place at Skinwalker Ranch. Now, this is from the PsyWarrior.com. I want to read this to you because I think this is definitely a play here. A psyop usually attempts to influence audiences and influence their emotions using truth and logic, while superstition influences through magical or rational beliefs. It is very easy to see how tempting superstition is to the propagandist. It is a way to quickly influence a target audience using emotional symbols and words that make no sense to the knowledgeable but are powerful emotional motivators to the true believer. We have read of witch doctors in Africa convincing insurgent warriors that amulets and prayers will turn government bullets into harmless water. We wonder how people can be so susceptible to obvious lies, but that is the power of superstition. In general, the government is not in favor of the use of superstition by PSYOP forces, yet we find it used again and again. It is just too tempting, too easy. That's from the Psy Warrior. And when you start looking up psychological operations, you can see how time and time again different governments have utilized this tactic to create and promote belief systems. So we look at a place like Skinwalker Ranch and think, okay, here we have the Skinwalker narrative, which is a very important narrative to the people that live in that area, but you see that it really wasn't put into play until 1996, 97. And then some of these beliefs, some of the older sightings that Junior Hicks so wonderfully documented, Dr. Frank Salisbury, some of these things start feeding into this carefully crafted narrative that, in my opinion, was woven to simply distract what was truly going on, which all roads are leading to non-lethal weapons testing. And if we don't get that point, then we are really, really in need of a brain transplant, basically. When you look at skinwalkerranch.org, you look at some of the research. Very few articles are actually available. They were supposed to be made available to the public by NIDS, but that quickly disappeared. But one of the interesting articles was Microscopic Changes in Bovine Tissues Exposed to Microwave Radiation, High Heat, and Cauterization by George Onett and Dr. Colm Kelleher for NIDS. Isn't that interesting that they would be studying radiation, high heat, cauterization? We now know through some of the statements of people that were involved with NIDS that in all likelihood that cattle mutilations are directly related to humans and nothing extraterrestrial. But I wonder where we're going to keep spinning that angle. September 2nd, 2012 marked a very historic moment. And on the Paracast with David Weatherly, Ryan Skinner, Chris O'Brien, and a man named Chip who worked for BAASS, There were some serious allegations made, some very intriguing statements made, and it did go noticed, but unfortunately, that show didn't really get the attention that it deserved because it is so powerful and so profound. And this is the first time that we have somebody that has dared to go on the record asking the question, what were we doing at Skinwalker Ranch? What I can tell you they weren't doing on the ranch is actually investigating UAP, because we know that there was absolutely no equipment there, except for the equipment that people purchased by themselves to bring on the property. We know that the security cameras were fake, as we have heard from testimony on my show from Chris Marx and Chris Bartell. Another curious fact is by some people have stated that when BAASS deployed teams to the field, that there were 4 to 8 people, but yet here you have people saying there was just 1 to 2 people on the ranch at the time. So does that mean that the other people were simply put in place to go up there to observe what was taking place at the ranch? I also find it incredibly curious that you have all of these reports that were submitted. In these reports, you have from people like Chris Marx, from Chip, from all of these people, they were submitted. And in these reports, it very specifically states that there were certain places on the ranch where the same types of things happened, where the hair stood on end, where the animals were frightened, where they felt sick, nauseous. I mean, come on, people. At what point are we going to realize this has more to do with advanced aerospace weapons systems applications than it does UAP research? But hey, keep on believing what you're going to believe. And in the meantime, make sure that people in a community are hurt, that people who are potentially exposed to things are hurt. This is not right. Now, I'm going to read you a little bit of a statement from an article on MSNBC. It's called Non-Lethal Weapons Touted for Use on Citizens. Non-lethal weapons, such as high-powered microwave devices, should be used on American citizens in crowd control situations before being used on the battlefield, the Air Force Secretary said Tuesday. The object is basically public relations. Domestic would make it easier to avoid questions from others about possible safety considerations, said Secretary Michael Wynn. If we're not willing to use it here against our fellow citizens, then we should not be willing to use it in a wartime situation, said Wynn. Non-lethal weapons generally can weaken people if they're hit with a beam. Some of the weapons can emit short, intense energy pulses that can also be effective in disabling some electronic devices. We haven't heard that happen before, have we? So there are some really serious and very interesting implications here that for some reason most of the Kool-Aid drinkers aren't looking at, and I have to say, get a grip. With the OSAP contract, some of the reports that were issued, the technical reports, two actually caught my eye. The pulse-powered based weaponry that was investigated or researched, and then also we have the high-energy laser weapons, and that was researched as well. Both of those are on the report. Both of those were scientifically studied, and yet nobody who is writing on the subject in America is talking about this. Now, when you look at the fellow, John Albertine, who actually wrote the paper, he was invested, November 15th, 2005 in Hawaii, was cited for more than 35 years of continuing system engineering contributions to the Navy and DoD development, integration, and performance testing of directed energy systems, recognized by all three services as a major source of expertise for emerging directed energy weapons systems. Okay, so really, why are we ignoring that? Why are we ignoring the claims of people like my husband, Chris Marx, like Chip, like Chris Bartell? Why are we ignoring the important reports and the brave people that have come forward to talk about their experiences, Michelle Sanborn being one of them? I will play a clip from her later this evening because I think it is important for you to hear it again. And I highly suggest that you take this show and the other shows I have done recently on this and spread them far and wide, there are serious implications and questions that need to be answered, and we need to get a clue. I will say that time and time again. So I'm going to now play you a clip, and it is a compilation of an interview I did with James Keenan a few weeks ago, and he is an author and a researcher, and it also includes a clip from Michelle Sanborn. Her grandfather was Charles Wynn, who lived right next to Skinwalker Ranch, and then a local resident who I have been interviewing over the years, talking about his experience that his grandmother had in the area. So, Tina, if you could please roll that clip, I would be greatly appreciative.
That location, we have multiple events and multiple things, and now we've just had to add a whole nother column in regards to, it's coming out to where people were being used like guinea pigs without their knowledge.
So he said he went down there. It was about 2 a.m, and he had just stepped over the fence to pull the dam out. And as the main road turns to go over the hill, the sand hill, he thought that there was a helicopter checking the power lines. He said that Deseret Generations would occasionally check that power line, but he said that they would never do it in the dark and that they wouldn't have a reason to. So there was a bright light, and he said it was quite a ways away at first, but the closer it got to him, the brighter it got. He said it was a white color. He wanted to describe it as an arc welder light, and it was inevitably coming right toward me. It wasn't changing its course. So he first saw it over by the power line, and it was like it noticed him, and it went straight to him. And he said he would describe it over and over as an arc welder light, just so bright you can't look into it, but even if you're looking to the side of it, it still hurts your eyes. So he said in another part of the interview that it was so bright that he thought it was going to burn him to nothing, to where there was nothing left. So he did the only thing he could think of, and he dropped down in the ditch full of water. The only thing sticking out was his mouth and his nose, and he covered his eyes because it was just that bright that he couldn't see anything. And he said that he didn't think he was going to survive that light, but he said it wasn't hot, and there was no sound at all. And as quick as it came, it went, and it went towards the rock. So I guess what you call Werewolf Ridge, it went straight into that direction. And he just kept thinking, I'm going to hear a crash. I'm going to see an explosion. Something's going to happen. And nothing happened. He said it was like it disappeared right into the ridge right there. And he just kept waiting for that explosion or that crash. And he said, common sense says it didn't have time to go around the ridge, but he also said it was so bright that even if the ridge had opened up, he wouldn't have been able to see anything, but it just disappeared into that ridge. He said it was about 3 to 4 feet in diameter. And like he said, there was no sound, and that's what really scared him. But he said he couldn't see a frame. He couldn't see a shape. He couldn't see edges. It was just so bright that you couldn't look at it.
With regard to, and going back to the really important and profound experience that your grandmother had, tell us the story about that.
Well, my grandpa and my uncle Tim and my grandmother were out hunting rocks. They'd done a lot of lapidary work and stuff, and they were just out hunting rocks, hunting arrowheads, stuff like that. And my grandmother just came up missing, and they couldn't find her. They tried to track her and everything, and it just wasn't panning out. They couldn't find her. And maybe most of the day later, they finally spotted her walking into them, to where they were. dazed, very, very burnt by something red, and they finally got to talk to her, and she couldn't remember anything. She thought it was morning still.
And she went to see the doctor, right?
Yes. Went to her family doctor in Vernal, and he just diagnosed radiation exposure.
And that's just to have that documentation would have been incredible. When I came up and talked
Yes.
to your grandmother, and I was trying to figure out if I could get any information to back that up. It was sad to learn that the family doctor had passed away and his files had been destroyed.
Yes. I inquired on that quite a bit, and those things happens, I guess.
Well, they do, but just the fact that all of you remember that so vividly, the fact that she did go to her doctor and these things, and when she described to me the way the radiation burns looked, they were little circles, and they seemed to be, from my recollection, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they seemed to be in almost like a grid-like pattern.
Yes. It just one of the strangest things you ever seen. It was grid-like, and it was strange.
So there you have it. There you have 3 different stories, 3 different ideas on things, but they're all taking place in the same area. What is going on? We need to ask ourselves, and the more and more I learn about this, I do believe that there are paranormal things happening all around us. I do think that the Uinta Basin is an incredibly interesting place for lots of different reasons. But do I think that what a lot of these people were seeing at the end of the day was something that was paranormal? I don't. There is too much evidence now that is out there on the table that we just cannot look away from the non-lethal weapons testing, and what a prime location to do this private property. You've got people from the DIA coming up there. You have all sorts of Native American reservation bordering the property. There's so much. And then you've got the fact that, like I was mentioning, you've got this brilliant psyop that this narrative started getting promoted, and it was very easy for people to write off things that happened to them, like injuries, like seeing an orb, like you hear Michelle talks about with regard to her grandfather, seeing that, diving into a ditch. He was afraid he was going to get burned. And yet, at the end of the day, because these belief systems have been tainted, you have people that are willing to just say, "Oh, I'm going to get cancer. It's that pesky UFO again." I mean, how brilliant is that? Nobody's truly asking questions. You couldn't ask for a better psyop right there. I do want to thank Ryan Skinner, because he has been so very helpful in a lot of areas with regard to my research. He introduced me to Chris Marx, my husband. He introduced me to Michelle, and he has done a lot of work interviewing people over the years, and I really, really appreciate all that you've done, Ryan. You've taken a lot of heat from some very nasty people, and I know that you have done good things, so thank you. And I also want to send you and Ashley my love and blessings. I know that your home caught fire, which is tragic, and you are trying to rebuild your life, so my thoughts and prayers are with both of you, and thank you for your work over the years. So another thing that I want to talk a little bit about is the bean sprout experiment, and that was quite curious. There were instances where actually there were 2 scientists that came up from BAASS, and they put in bean sprouts that were placed all over the trailer where people were living, like Chris Marx and Chris Bartell, the BAASS employees. And they also had bean sprouts at the Bigelow headquarters. And it really perplexed everyone because they couldn't understand, what these were about. But it is really interesting that when you look at the effects of radiation on seed survival and germination, it's quite peculiar. And so I want to just cite a little bit of an article by Emily Z. from February 20th, 2017 for coursework for Stanford University. Radiation on seed germination. Exposure to radiation has been found to cause a large range of effects on seeds. In one study done by Marcoux et al. On the effects of radiation on seeds, it was found that radiation not only impacts the germination potential and actual qualities of the germinated seedlings, such as root and shoot lengths, where germination potential is the percentage of the seeds that is germinated overall and the time of germination compared to when the seed was planted. Furthermore, seeds were also found to have a decreased photosynthetic pigment content where they were irradiated compared to those that were not irradiated. Thus, it is clear that radiation not only impacts the quality of the seedlings, but the quantity of them. Interesting. Doesn't the plot just thicken as the moments go on? So here you have people that are coming forward that worked on the property with serious allegations, with serious questions that deserve to be answered. You have the fact that people that were, the scientists that were working for Bigelow were specifically told to stay off the property. You have reports that it was also mentioned that anybody close, in fact, Chris Marx mentioned this, that people that were the upper echelon at Bigelow were told not to go on the property as well because of the health effects. And yet you have people like Chris, you have people like Charles Wynn, who was living next to the property, all these things, all these people that are put in harm's way with no tools. They were not asked to be put in this position. And, we highly doubt that there will ever be answers on that side of the bridge. But, we know that we will get to the bottom of it on our side of the bridge. I have a huge network of people all over the world that are taking a big interest in this. They understand the gravity of the situation, and they are doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work. And for that, I want to just give all of them a big thanks. Thank you for your support. Thanks for understanding that this is a human rights issue, that there is something that we should be aware of. And also as a UFO community, we should be banding together and demanding answers from people that put this story forward to begin with. People who are on record as stating that they knew toys were deployed in and around the ranch, and yet they did nothing. So I'm Erica Lukes. We're going to actually play a clip from the Paracast when we get back. I'm sure you'll enjoy that. Stick around. The best is yet to come.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified. UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
In the shadows, a voice cries out. Evidence that you're not alone.
You said my name. What is your name?
Proof that the living and the dead coexist. Or do they? Every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, join writer, producer, and paranormal investigator Greg Bakken on Ghost Box Radio as he explores, interviews, and investigates evidence alongside some of the best in the paranormal community and beyond.
6 people killed.
Ghost Box Radio, Wednesday nights exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, because the dead don't sleep. Ghost Box Radio.
We interrupt to bring you this.
Would you like to advertise on KCOR Digital Radio Network?
This is what I'm talking about.
At a fraction of the cost of traditional radio advertising, why not?
Tell them the good news.
Whether you need to promote your next book, product, or service, we can customize a package for just about any budget.
Finally, there is hope for the hopeless.
Why limit yourself to a tiny local market when KCOR can brand you to the world?
Here's all you do.
Visit KCORradio.com or contact our sales department by email at saleskcorradio.com.
We want it now!
See the difference with us by letting us work for you.
This ain't reality TV!
The KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Now you ready to go? Turn your radio.
It's showtime!
Here we go, world. You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Chip on the line, and I think, Gene, this is the first time someone that has been directly involved with the Sherman Ranch has come forward publicly and agreed to talk about some of their experiences while up in that area. And Chip, welcome to the Paracast. We really appreciate you being on the show.
It's good to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Well, you know, you are in a very awkward position, obviously, by, you know, having an affiliation with this particular, you know, incredible case. Why don't you give us a thumbnail of your involvement and kind of give us a sense of what's been going on up there over these past few years?
Oh, well, I was actually at the ranch there for approximately 8 weeks on and off, 2 weeks at a time. And, you know, it's a very strange place to be, especially if you've never been out there. I'm sure there's some listeners that haven't been out there. But obviously there's a lot of folklore that goes on with, you know, the Indian tribes that are out there, and everybody, you know, is superstitious. But I didn't believe any of it when I went out there for the first time. And nothing really happened the first time, and I was like, okay, nothing's going on here. And then it went a couple more times, and I just started noticing things like in my bag. Like I would have something in a specific place, and then I would go back, and it wouldn't be in that specific place. And I thought I was going crazy, but it just, things would be moved around all the time, and I couldn't explain it. So, you know, it's just little things like that that would happen. And also, I know of an incident like had a stereo that was off, unplugged, and it turned on.
Turned on, unplugged, didn't have a battery supply.
No batteries, nothing. Just like a regular one that you get from like a Walmart, you know,
sure.
Like one of those $150 ones that you plug in and got the CD player and all that stuff.
Let me ask you a quick question, Chip. I don't know how much information you want to give us or reveal, but how did you happen to get to the ranch? Were you working there or what?
Yes. I worked there at the ranch.
Okay, this is for this period, but you're no longer working at the ranch, are you?
No.
Okay.
No, none of the people that I worked with, none of us work there anymore.
Okay, so you had a chance to talk with other people and get some insights from them?
Yes. So, and we originally, like when we would go up there, we were based out of Las Vegas, Nevada. Is where we were actually hired from, where we lived. They would fly us out there for 2 weeks at a time. But they stopped flying us because the people at the airport, the TSA agents, knew who we were by, you know, looking at our driver's license and our IDs and all that. but by what we were carrying, because we were carrying sidearms, and we had it loaded in the bag, so they knew that we had stuff, and they knew where we were going. They were telling people that when we weren't there, so they stopped having us fly out there and started getting a rental car from Las Vegas, and we took a rental car from Las Vegas to the ranch.
What kind of trip is that?
Yeah, that's a hike. That's 6 hours or something.
Yeah, 8 hours.
Wow.
8-hour drive.
So why were you armed on the ranch?
Well, they said to deter anybody that comes on the ranch, but I don't necessarily believe that. You know, it's anybody can be deterred. People know they're not supposed to be there. You know, you don't need a gun to deter.
On the Paracast with Gene and Chris, we've been talking to David Weatherly, Ryan Skinner, and now an insider story from Chip. So, Chip, you're saying is that you opted to have a firearm, but you didn't have to. You didn't feel you had to?
No. It was required of us to have a firearm.
Okay, so as part of the gig, you have to have a firearm, but you weren't clear about why.
No, they said it was, you know, for protection in case anybody came on the ranch or anything, but you don't need a sidearm out there if anybody comes on the ranch. It's not like somebody's coming to hurt you or steal anything there. Like, as far as people coming to look at the ranch, they're just curious and want to know what's going on, just like everybody else. So you don't really need a handgun for protection. So I think it was for something else in case. I'm not saying that there is a skinwalker or there isn't a skinwalker, but, you know, I'm thinking it's more along the lines for that.
Now, let me ask you a question here without revealing information about you, which I don't want to do. You're keeping your identity secret, which we respect. Do you feel there would be negative repercussions if you were known as to who you really are?
Oh, absolutely. No doubt in my mind. We were required to have a secret security clearance for this.
Now, security clearance being what kind? Military?
Military.
Okay, so you're telling us something of your background by not telling us.
We were all required to have the security clearance. Every single one of us that were hired.
Well, I have a question for you, Chip. I found out in 2004 through the grapevine somebody who was associated with one of the people that were monitoring the ranch over these last few years, and they had heard a rumor while on a trip in London that there had been some sort of altercation between security personnel and some sort of paranormal or alien or weird, very aggressive beings. After doing quite a bit of digging, coming up with some potentially collaborating information, I think ID the time period around the summer of '99. Did you hear of anybody getting hurt or even killed up there, security personnel who were involved in monitoring activity on the ranch and keeping curious onlookers off the ranch? Did you ever hear rumors of this?
No, I didn't. They didn't give us any information about the ranch at all when we went to work up there. They just said, you're doing security, you'll patrol at night, and you'll keep people off this property. We got no insight. They just said they made us carry around cameras and night vision and thermal imagers. They say allegedly to catch intruders. They had us carry a camera, so if we felt anything different in our body, any chill, like anything, like, the hair goes up in the back of your neck, stop immediately, scan with the thermal imagers, the night vision, and take pictures, because there's an unexplained energy out there. But that's all they gave us. That's all they said.
Well, that brings up an interesting question here. When you took pictures, did anything ever come out?
I never really got anything. Like, we got these things they called orbs in the picture, but they said those were balls of energy. But I don't know how much I believe if those orbs were energy or not. I don't know, because I did some research on it, because obviously I was curious into what they were having me do out there. I thought maybe it's, like the dust and pollen particles that are in the air that are causing these so-called orbs that are in the pictures.
Did you take a series of pictures and have orbs in some and not in others within quick succession?
Yes, I did, and that's where I'm getting with that. I thought maybe it could be the dust and pollen in the air, and then I concluded it couldn't have been, because I would take several pictures, sometimes 25 pictures once I felt something like that. And there would be pictures that were one right after the other. One would have, a couple hundred orbs in them. And then the other one, nothing at all. Completely just black.
Well, Chip, one thing I've heard through some of my sources in the area is that there was something called the Orb Project, and that the people managing the ranch and supervising personnel like yourself were aware of some sort of correlation between these orbs showing up in photographs and other activity that was occurring on the ranch. Did you ever see a correlation between the appearance of these orbs in your photographs and then subsequent strange events?
Not really. I would just feel weird. I didn't really have too many weird things happen like while I was actually out walking, but, it's kind of creepy out there walking by yourself with a dog. They have you walk with a dog, and you're out there in the middle of the night by yourself, freezing, and it's pitch black. So, your mind can play tricks on you either way, but I can't really think of a time where I actually had a direct correlation with the orbs and then something strange happening right after seeing the orbs, something strange, and then the orbs appear.
Now, these dogs, were these standard police dogs?
No, they weren't. They were just regular household dogs. They didn't have any training, which I guess they didn't want dogs that had training because it could affect how they sense things. I don't know. So
that brings up a really good point, Chip. Were you ever out there with the dogs and they became an early warning detection device where they would respond to something that you couldn't perceive? Or did you ever have any animal reactions in that regard?
Yes, there were times where the dogs would start barking or would just lay down on the ground. So then I just started taking pictures because I didn't feel anything at all when that was happening. And then I take pictures, and a lot of the times when the dog would do that, there would be the orbs in the pictures.
You say lay down on the ground in fear or just laying down?
On the back, rolled over on the back.
Ah, okay. That strikes me as
interesting.
Move of surrender. Yes.
Yeah, I'll say leave me alone. Don't mess with me.
Don't hit me anymore. I didn't mean to poop on the carpet.
So what about rumors from other security personnel and scientists up there? I mean, did you have interactions with the scientists? Were they forthcoming about some of the events that had happened in the past? Or did you do any digging on your own?
The scientists only came up there one time. And I don't know about these guys. They're supposed to, have these doctrines and all that stuff. I don't know. They just didn't seem like they really did. I think they were just there to collect a paycheck, and Bigelow said, go out there and do this, and that's seriously, it's pretty much like they were playing slap and tickle.
All right.
So going through the motions, going up there going, oh, God, we got to drag our butts up here, put in our time to collect our paychecks.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, that strange noise you're hearing is not E.T. landing. We're talking to Chip on a mobile device.
I've heard a couple of rumors. This is Ryan. I've heard rumors that there was some pretty high-ranking military people that had come out to the ranch that had gotten spooked by something that they saw out there. And also prevalent rumors was that the security personnel or anybody at the ranch, researchers were urine tested after they had any kind of encounter out there. I didn't know if there was any truth to that rumor or if the special guys did.
Oh, yeah. The high-ranking military people, they did come out. I can't remember the exact. I know one of them was a general, and there was 3 others, and there was a female, but I don't remember their ranks. I don't know their names. They didn't come out when I was actually out there. I heard it about from the other guys. But I don't know what exactly happened. Nobody really was told what exactly happened, but there was an incident, and the military people freaked out. They wanted to be escorted off the property immediately, so they left. I don't know what the incident was. I know they freaked out, every single one of them.
Freaked out in fear or what?
In fear. And they wanted to be escorted off the property immediately, which, with people being in the military, you do have training, so you're not just some average, Joe, scared of the boogeyman, it's going to come after me. So something
we're talking
happened.
about a military person freaking out. That's itself a bit of a freak out.
Multiple military people. It wasn't just one. It was multiple. So I don't know what they saw, but they saw something. And they weren't too happy about it and didn't want to be there anymore. So
the other question was regarding if there was a urine test ever done after researchers would have some sort of encounter. It's another rumor that I came across.
yes, they did urine tests to us. If we saw anything, if there was take pictures and there was multiple orbs and we felt something like, a cold feeling or just like felt something different, like I was telling you about how we had to take pictures and see if there was the orbs in the pictures. Did that. It was in the report. They made you do a pee test. You had to pee in these little jars, and then you had to bring them back with you when you went back down. Back down after your 2-week stay, you had to bring it back down to Las Vegas, where they had their little lab, and they did I don't know what they did with it, but they did whatever with it. They did their thing with it.
Don't think they were making martinis.
I don't think so either. Which brings me to another thing. They also had some guys after they went to there was a few guys that went to the ranch, and then there was a few that hadn't been to the ranch yet. They sent the guys, they paid for the trip to Reno on a weekend, paid for the facility to be open, and get brain scans on all the individuals.
You mean MRI?
MRI, yes. And they would not let you. They would not let you look at it. They said the only information you will get is if you have a brain tumor or something life-threatening, wrong with your brain. Then they'll give you some information on it. But
it seems peculiar that they would believe there was some reason to fear a brain tumor. So you're still alive, no brain tumor.
Well, you're almost
no brain
tumor. Biological connection to what's going on, that whatever they witness or experience makes some sort of physiological altercation to the witness, and this is me theorizing, but that would be my guess, either that or a drug test, one of the two.
Well, what did you think of this type of scientific interest in security personnel and others who were on the ranch? I mean, did you ever ask any questions? What do you think they were looking for? Give us your thinking on that.
Is directed towards Chip?
Yes, Chip.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What were they looking for? I don't know. Something not normal. Something out of the norm, definitely. As far as, I don't know if I want to say paranormal. Yeah, I don't know. But it was definitely something, and for military, those 4 high-ranking military people to be freaked out about something, for, them sending and paying all the money to have MRIs done on the individual's brains, that just, it's not like we were sick or anything. So why are you spending all this money? There's obviously something going on. It's almost like we were the guinea pigs. They were testing us. Is what it seems like. You know what I mean? Like they were examining us. Is what it feels like. Like we were the test dummies here. Like I don't know. Like if they have some new military thing they're using out there, and they wanted to see how it affects people. I don't know.
So are you suggesting here that maybe you were hired not so much to provide security, but to be a lab rat?
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. Did they do similar experiments or tests on the dogs?
What's that?
Do you know if they did similar tests on the dogs that you guys carried with you?
No, not while I was there. They didn't do any tests on the animals. You just had to take an animal with you, and if they acted weird or like I said, they laid down and stuff, then you start taking pictures. But other than that, they didn't do anything, to my knowledge, with the animals.
Well, at least they cared about the people, I hope.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't know if anybody coming down with any illness or ailment as a result of this?
No. I don't know of anybody getting sick or having anything wrong with them, but it's just normal people don't just spend their money to send random individuals to get brain MRIs done and all this, and then pay somebody to sit at a ranch, and do all this stuff that you had us doing. It's just not normal.
Let me ask you a quick question here, just a quick question, Chip. And that is here, you were there for just a number of weeks, and that was it. Was that the intent
Yeah.
to hire you for a short duration gig and that's all?
Well, they got rid of everybody. They did a mass hire, and not just the guards. They hired investigators. They hired doctors. They had all sorts of like doctors. I mean, by like nuclear physics and all that. They had several people they hired. The building that they had in Las Vegas probably had about 50 to 60 people at the peak of their hiring.
Now, you're not saying, and I'm not going to ask you to be too specific, but roughly how many years ago was this?
2009.
Okay, so just 3 years ago.
2009, 2009, 2010. They laid everybody off in 2010.
Did they give any reason
Everybody.
or just say, that's it, you're finished, goodbye?
They said we lost our contract. And I actually saw some paperwork out at the office in Las Vegas there. They're actually under contract by the government. All of our pay, everything we were getting
wait a
paid.
minute. Hold on. Which branch of government? Or what
NSA.
agency? NSA.
Yes.
Was covering paychecks and payroll for personnel monitoring.
This is Ryan. This is what I've been saying forever.
All right, now, Chip, I'm going to ask you a really serious question here, and understand it's done because it's the kind of thing we have to ask, and that is, if we asked you to prove in some fashion, and it could be for our eyes only, for your eyes only, like the song, just for us to see, prove that you were actually employed by these people, would you be prepared to show that evidence?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe we can work that out and report back to our listeners.
Are you talking about by the NSA or by...
Okay, so there you have it, my friends. One of the most pivotal interviews, in my opinion, in the history of the subject. And again, I want to give a very big thanks to Gene Steinberg at the Paracast for giving me permission, and Chris O'Brien. I talked to David Weatherly today, and that was a great conversation. And he said he's been studying all of this since the 70s, and his comment to me was, this is one of the most important shows he has ever done in his life. And that says a lot, you know. And then Ryan Skinner was asking great questions about the urine testing, which we know is utilized at Los Alamos when workers are perhaps exposed to radiation. So there are lots of big questions. It was also interesting to get David Weatherly's thoughts on all of this. And, you know, he was amazed, and we had this Elaine Douglas connection, and he said the evening that this Paracast interview actually made it on the air, which was September 2nd, 2012, that he got a phone call. He was driving his car listening to the show, and he got a phone call from someone who was incredibly amped up about this, and they wanted to know answers. They wanted to know who this was. They wanted to know how to get in touch with this person. And guess who the person was that was on the end that was so adamant about getting a hold of Chip to find out what was going on? Well, it was Elaine Douglas. As some of you know, Elaine Douglas is very near and dear to my heart. I feel in many ways that I'm trying to complete her work or continue it in the best way I can. And at every turn of the road, I am trying to move against oncoming traffic, which is usually MUFON. They stepped in to make sure that Elaine's files didn't go anywhere other than to them. Luckily for a person, anonymous person who was kind enough to send me some of the digital scans, I have those which do show the work that she was doing, but the majority of the good stuff was scrubbed. But it is really curious when you look back at MUFON, you look at Bigelow, you look at Skinwalker Ranch, you look at all of these things, at Elaine Douglas, all of these paths intersect, and they all have a very profound story to tell. I fully believe at the end of the day that Elaine Douglas was on to many, many things, and she understood that there were serious problems with what was taking place at the ranch. She was one of the first people to raise concerns about the fact that Bigelow was actually working with a government entity, and she was concerned about the fact that the files from MUFON were sold with the names, with the addresses, with all of this personal information that was being sold to Robert Bigelow. For what reason? It is also curious to note that there are some reports, and I could maybe ask one of my listeners tonight if he could actually call in and address this, but some reports that there were quote-unquote men in black who were paid to actually go out and collect UFO data and intimidate witnesses. So it gets better every step of the way. But like I said, there's a really important story here. And at the end of the day, I think that what we're truly looking at is the mass manipulation of a community, not only the UFO community, the Uinta Basin, the manipulation of a story to create a smokescreen for other things. As I have demonstrated, and I talk a lot about this on my shows, there is a need for the powers that be to bring up the UFO narrative every decade. It's, oh yes, we admit that there's something here. This has been going on since the late 40s, people. Give me a break. And they also can use the UFO subject to get in and manipulate beliefs, to play spy games, to do all of these things, to test weapons. You know, it's amazing. And we have to wake up. We have to wake up. This is critical for all of us. It is critical for the integrity of the subject. I'm Erica Lukes. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
We were the guinea pigs. They were testing us. Is what it seems like. You know what I mean? Like they were examining us. Is what it feels like. Like we were the test dummies here. Like I don't know. Like if they have some new military thing they're using out there, and they wanted to see how it affects people. I don't know.
So are you suggesting here that maybe you were hired not so much to provide security, but to be a lab rat?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Did they do?
So what we have is more testimony coming out to support Chip, who so bravely went on a Paracast show back in 2012 with Gene Steinberg, with Chris O'Brien, with David Weatherly, and Ryan Skinner, and he talked about some of the questions he had about what was taking place at the ranch, what really was taking place at the ranch. We have now seen with the solicitation sheet for the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program that there are some people involved that are, and reports that have been, papers that have been written that specifically talk about different types of weapons. When you look at the side effects caused by some of these weapons, you're seeing some of the same types of physical effects on the ranch and around the ranch. And I think we need to take this very seriously. In an article in Vice magazine that came out January 30th, 2020 by MJ Benias, it's called Inside Skinwalker Ranch, a Paranormal Hotbed of UFO Research. Let me just read a couple of the paragraphs here. Over the last year, several strange cases of extreme electromagnetic fields have been logged on the ranch. According to BARD, these EM fields are transient. They come and go, move around at times, and have reached dangerous levels to humans. According to the ranch team, several times in the last few years, people on the ranch have become ill, and some even required hospitalization. Thomas Winterton was hospitalized with life-threatening subgaleal fluid collections associated with inflammation in the brain and, or in layman's terms, swelling of the brain, collection of fluid between skull and scalp, which the team believes occurred when he attempted to dig on the ranch. MJ also writes he was able to confirm with medical records that some of the medical tests resulted in inconclusive results for common causes of such an injury. He says that it seems the jury is still out and Winterton is currently being monitored. Over the summer, 3 guests on the ranch reported strange skin inflammation, nausea, and extreme lassitude within a close period of time, and several of the people that visited the ranch went to the emergency room, according to the owners. So you have all of these interesting statements that are coming forward. Unfortunately, you also have people that aren't willing to do their due diligence and look at some of the potentials here for non-lethal weapons testing in this area. It very clearly, to me and other people, was in play at the ranch when Robert Bigelow owned the ranch. I think that we need to continue to look forward or look into this more and shine a highlight on this and ask for answers from people instead of, saying that this is UAP, yada, yada, yada. I can guarantee what's going to happen is they're going to be coming out with several cases, some in South America and different parts of the world, that will show that people are being injured by UAP. But if you maybe dig a little bit deeper, perhaps it wasn't UAP that these people were being injured by at all. Perhaps it was some sort of weapon that was being deployed. I want to read an article here, and actually it's a report from somebody on the ranch during the same time as Chip, we heard. This was August 9th, 2009. This has never been read publicly. He has an uneasy feeling at the East Gate. At approximately 2100 hours, I was on routine patrol to the East Gate. Halfway to the gate, I decided to take Ruka, my patrol dog, back home due to the wound on her leg. After I took Ruka back to the double wide, I began out on my patrol again. From the beginning of the night after I left Ruka, I had an uneasy feeling. The moon had not come above the horizon yet, and something didn't feel right. I set out towards the East Gate, and approximately halfway from the Homestead 1 and the East Gate, I began feeling as if something was watching me or someone was right behind me. I therefore turned on my flashlight and swept the immediate area. However, everything was secure. I began to set out towards the East Gate. At approximately 2100 hours, I arrived at the East Gate due to having to take my patrol dog back. Once I arrived at the gate, I felt uneasy, as if I was in a very dangerous position. I have not experienced this since I have deployed to the Utah ranch. I kept on my feet and walked around and had my flashlight out, sweeping the immediate area. After roughly 10 minutes in the area, my feeling was not getting any better. My legs began to shake and they felt unstable underneath me. As I ran up and down the mesa 10 times, I felt tired and exhausted as my feeling of unstableness worsened. I felt as if something was going to lunge out of the bushes on the right side. I felt something was very close to me and watching me. I felt as if it did not want me in this particular area. Again, my condition was getting more unstable. My legs were shaking, and by this time I felt so uneasy. I got a very upset stomach as if I was going to be sick. Throughout the duration of this experience, I felt no temperature changes, nor experienced any abnormal smells in the area. At the time, I took several pictures in the immediate area. Upon a close review of the photographs, there was nothing to report. I then called Robert on his cell phone 3 times, and all 3 calls were dropped. Usually, I have good reception in this area. Curious, isn't it? I then radioed him and told him I felt unsure about the situation and I was heading back. I immediately started back towards the double wide. As I got further away from the area, I felt a lot more confident and my legs didn't feel so tired. When I got back to the double wide, I made contact with the caretakers and explained what had happened and started to calm down. At approximately 20 minutes sitting down at the homestead, I felt normal. At this time, Robert and I proceeded to back out to the gate to do further investigations on the situation. While on the way back to the gate, my legs felt fine and I was not nauseous whatsoever. We walked eastbound to the gate, taking photos along the way, and have photographic evidence of heavy orbs. When we reached the east gate, I felt the same exhausted feeling in my legs. I walked towards the middle of the road. At this time, Robert took a picture of me and I was surrounded by orbs. He then took a photograph approximately 7 seconds after the first one, and they were all gone. For the rest of the time we spent at the gate, we continued to get amazing photographic evidence. So, yet again, here is another report of being in a specific area and having situations where you're made to feel uncomfortable. There are definitely technologies available that do just this, that have been deployed in theater and have obviously been deployed and used for crowd control, used in the prison system in California. So these same types of feelings happen. I think this is incredibly curious. And I also want to take a moment and read another report because I think as we look back and see all of these things, it makes perfect sense. So this was another report that was submitted October 8th, 2009. Patrol observations. There were 2 fellows that were on patrol at the East Gate at approximately approximately I posted at the East Gate along with Canine Max and Ruka, the 2 dogs that have been photographed. Shortly after getting there, I took several photos. One of the photos revealed a single white orb. It was clear skies, a little windy when I took the photos. I was sitting by the East Gate observing with my eyes and ears and watching the dogs for anything out of the ordinary. I was sitting in a chair just off the road facing 15 to 20 feet from the gate. The dogs were unusually calm. A while later, the dogs both jumped up and started barking at something behind me. I immediately started taking photos. I captured a few anomalies orbs in the photos, and after I stopped taking photos, I saw a single white orb with my naked eye. It was a bright white, and it was about half the size of a golf ball. It was 10 feet from me and was gone after 2 seconds. It came into my view from the right. It wasn't moving in a straight line. It was moving up and down erratically. I tried unsuccessfully to get a picture of it. As I was about to take a picture, it vanished just as suddenly as it had appeared. I started to take more photos, and then I heard what sounded like a voice. This was only 10 to 15 seconds after I saw the orb. It was coming from directly in front of me. I couldn't make out any words or how many words. The best way I could describe it would be a deep, creepy whisper, but it didn't sound threatening at all. At the time I heard the voice, I was standing in the road facing south about 10 feet from the gate. It sounded like a male voice. Immediately after hearing the voice is when I first noticed both dogs were acting very timid and scared. They were whimpering and curling up. against my legs, had their tail between their legs. They continued to act this way for at least another hour. I continued taking photos and captured several other anomalies. I didn't feel any strange emotions, nor did I notice any strange odors in the air during this experience. I did, however, get the chills, and I felt a little freaked out after hearing the voice. I radioed to my partner, who was at the Mesa with Bella. I told him what I experienced. He decided to walk down to the East Gate to investigate with me. They both arrived. I told him everything I experienced. We both continued to take photos in all directions. We were able to capture various anomalies. A few of the pictures captured some unique anomalies that I'd never seen to that point. We continued to scan and take photos in the area of the East Gate and the road leading back to Homestead 1. We decided to head back so we could report what happened, and we arrived at the trailer. So, again, here you have specific places that are being named time and time again where things are happening, where you're hearing voices, where you're getting feelings, where you sense this dread, where you sense all of these things. It is interesting to note that these people aren't the only people that experience that. And so I am thinking I am going to be to bring Chris Marx on, who's conveniently right here, shocking when you're married, to talk a little bit about his experience with the same orb. And so, Chris, welcome back to the show for the 10,000th time. But I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate the fact, again, like I've said a million times, that you are brave enough to come forward, and we can now look at what Chip has done, what he did back in 2012, and we can work forward from that. So tell us about the orb that you remember in this specific place.
Hi, Erica. Glad to be here. And so when you just read this, and I thought it was amazing because I know the author of this report, and I've worked with him several times, several rotations. And when you read this, it's so crazy how it sparks memories of things. I have had the exact same experience at the same location. I was at the East Gate. It was about 2 a.m, and pitch black. There was no moon. It was just black. And I noticed a white light that started glowing just north of the gate between the irrigation canal and the dirt road with the gate. And so it caught my attention because it was otherwise pitch black. And so I started, focusing in on it. I had Bella, Ruka, and Max with me, and they were sleeping. They actually started waking up. This light, or this orb, was about same as he described. It rose out of the pasture rather slowly and started getting airborne, and it was about the size of a tennis ball, maybe a little bit bigger, and it flew straight up, like linear, like straight up, and to about 20, 25 feet, and then it started headed into a southern direction. It flew over me, and started changing course here and there, and then it picked up speed, and it eventually disappeared behind the wood line of the Garcia Pond. And there was no sound, there was no smell, there was no anything, but it was clearly an object that was about the size, like I said, a little bigger than a tennis ball, that came from the ground and started straight up and then launched into a southern direction at about 25 feet of altitude.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'm glad that me reading these other reports from your colleagues could kind of stimulate a thought process and help you remember things. Do you remember, and I know that we have addressed this on some of the past shows, but do you remember having specific incidents where you were overcome by emotions? Could you please just share that again, and where the specific location on the ranch was that this took place?
Absolutely, and that brings back the same idea of the previous report you read, Homestead 2. And I was also there with Robert, same partner that the previous person you referred to had. And I had been feeling some very powerful emotional and physiological effects on my person coming into a certain zone, which was approximately starting at about 35, 50 feet east of Homestead 2 and the same distance to the west. And it was about a 50 foot by 50 foot square where you could almost guarantee that you would feel certain physiological changes. And so Robert and I went out, and I said, hey, I'm going to go in there. Can you please, when I give you a thumbs up, take pictures. Take just a ton of pictures. And so I went in. He stood outside the zone at just about 50 feet. And then I started feeling a very, very strong emotion of just doom, just being extremely depressed, feeling all of a sudden almost like suicidal. I started bawling out of the blue. I mean, that's not me. I'm not a depressed kind of guy. And I started, seriously, I was bawling and I had tears running down my face. And I said, Robert took pictures, a lot of pictures, and then he said, let's go. And I didn't want to go. I said, no, I feel comfortable here. I don't want to go anywhere. This is where I want to be. He said, let's go. I said, no. He pulled me up on my arm, and then once I was about 75 feet away from that thing, I was like, what just happened? I don't even really remember. And then we went to the trailer and looked at the pictures, and we saw two good-sized orbs about the size of cantaloupe. One was right next to my head on my left shoulder, and one was sitting at about heart level. And they were bluish, transparent, but still enough to show a clear shape. They were not pollen. They were not dust particles. We did not use flash photography. They were not visible to the naked eye, but they were there. And I have a very strong idea that those were the things that influenced my emotions and influenced my everything. Again, the same locations. It's Homestead 2. It is the East Gate. It is the trailer. It is the river on the south bend. It was what we call the second canal crossing. These were the locations you could take to the bank. You knew if something was going to happen, it was going to happen there.
And isn't it interesting that you had so many different types of emotions in specific areas? I know that the new crew, the new people that are at the ranch now have had similar experiences where they're hearing, feeling a sense of dread, and then hearing a voice saying, stop, turn around. They occur in the same place. I wonder, as you look back now and kind of address the fact that the scientists and specific key people from Bigelow were told not to be on the property. I mean, can you give us a little example of that just to drive it home of what you remember hearing about the fact that Bigelow did not want his top people on the property?
Yeah, I was friends with a lot of the upper echelon at Bigelow. And one person in particular that I was very good friends with, and she was pretty much within the very innermost circle of Bigelow. And so we talked about the ranch. Mind you, this has been years after I've been on the ranch, and she wanted to hear all the ranch stories, this, that, and the other. That was before I realized what actually had taken place. And so I told her some of the stories, and she's like, yeah, I really wanted to go there so bad. But RTB specifically forbade us to go up there because things would follow you home, and it was not good for your health. And she said a lot of stuff where he strictly forbade anyone from his inner circle to be anywhere near the place, to include his scientists.
And so now, as you look back at all of that, and you start to put the pieces together, I mean, I think at the time you guys didn't understand the gravity of the situation, and you drank the Kool-Aid like everybody else. You were primed to believe that you were going in there to do paranormal research, but yet you actually were perfect candidates for a real life testing scenario of weapons that could be deployed on the battlefield. I mean, that's plain and simple.
That are deployed currently on the battlefield. And, it's been kind of a gut-wrenching journey since then, because all I wanted to believe was that we were really looking at a menu of paranormal activity. And the more is coming out and the more documents we are receiving, and some more classified, that will put it right on the map that it wasn't about the ghosts and goblins. It was about something entirely different. And so, what kills me is the greed behind it all.
Right, absolutely. And I think it's sad that some people are viewed as dispensable, and others are, it's just, they're protected and things. And I've thrown this out here a lot because I really think at the end of the day, this is important. But when people like Dr. Eric Davis, who is a member of several interesting organizations, I would highly recommend that each of you go look at his bio and then do some research on that. It's how do people like that, knowing full well that it wasn't about UFOs, how do they look at themselves in the mirror? There's serious questions here, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. I'm Erica Lukes, and we'll be back after the break.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified
with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Woven throughout the universe are keys to a hidden message, awaiting a voice that can decipher their coded meaning, a cosmic connection to the cosmos. Tune in to the KCOR Digital Radio Network at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern for Cosmic Connection. Cosmic Connection. Cosmic Connection. Cosmic Connection with astrologers Caroline Lynch and Merlin Wizard. Your weekly astrology reading is but a phone call away. So call Cosmic Connection Sunday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, and get your free reading today. Cosmic Connection with Caroline Lynch and Merlin Wizard. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Vegas, baby!
Vegas' #1 source for talk and new music.
How cool is that?
We interrupt this program to annoy you and make things generally irritating.
At the end of the day, we turn the lights down in the KCOR studio.
Oh, sweet.
And crank up the hottest club songs from around the world.
This is the future.
The Grind, mixed by Tina Marie, your Vegas vixen of the high desert.
What about the body? What kind of body?
Good body. Nice body.
Every night from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Pacific. The best 3 hours of commercial-free music.
New music first.
It's time to stand up and dance your ass off. The Grind, nightly and exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Come on, it's kind of hot.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is your captain. I'd like to welcome you on Jackpot Airlines Flight 1610
service to lost wages.
They say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, apparently, they need a reality check done Vegas style.
Vegas, 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 Vegas.
Tune in Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, for Reality Check, hosted by Jessica Johns and Callie Otto, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Biggest star in the world, bigger than Britney and Christina put together.
If it's happening on the Vegas Strip, you'll know about it here first.
You are a dirty little fun haver.
Join Jessica Johns and Callie Otto as they explore and go behind the scenes of what's hot and what's not. From the best entertainment Vegas has to offer to national celebrity gossip.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Jessica and Callie have their fingers on the heartbeat of the city and are waiting to share it with you. Reality Check, hosted by Jessica Johns and Callie Otto.
Yeah, baby.
Wednesday, 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern. They do Vegas right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You are listening
to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
I love the way it sounds. I love the music. All I listen to.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the last segment of UFO Classified. I want to thank all of my loyal listeners and show supporters. You are amazing, and I want to make sure that I'm getting you information, and I will promise you, because you are so gracious to donate to the show, that I will be sending and sharing with you things that that are very special because you support the show. So thank you, and for all of you who tune in from all over the world and understand what I'm trying to do. I want to just give a shout out to you and thank you as well. This has not been an easy route for me. I spend hours and hours and hours a week researching and a lot of money obtaining archives and traveling places and doing things. But I fully believe that we deserve the truth. We deserve to be respected as people who have serious questions about the subject, who have had profound experiences. We don't deserve manipulation. We simply don't, and that's exactly what we are getting now. Thank you, TTSA. Thank you, Louis Elizondo. And I invite any of you on my show, which I've done for the past couple of years, but that doesn't seem to happen. I also want to say, as I left off before the break, saying I hope that people who are involved in the directed energy professional society, in recognition of the significant contributions to DE high-energy laser weapons, I hope some of you who are saying that I am completely crazy because of the questions I'm raising, I hope you realize that, guess what, at the end of the day, the truth will come out, and people deserve better than to be utilized as test subjects. This is simply an utterly human rights violation, to say the least. But anyway, we'll keep on it. I am joined here. I just asked Chris Marx to come on because he's remembering more and more about specific places on the ranch where things were happening. There were people, and we have talked about this again, but I think this is important now given the gravity of the show this evening. But you mentioned people that were on the ranch that were working for BAASS that had some mental problems, that really had, and I don't want to, obviously we're not going to get into names, but they were affected, and they claimed that they were affected by being on the property.
Right. There were several. Some people only went up for one rotation and never came back. Matter of fact, several people I worked with before I met Bartel and trained him in October 2010. I've been with various people, and I remember one in particular that went crazy to the point of he locked himself in his bedroom and wouldn't come out, and it became an issue where I was worried about him. And then when he came out, he looked like he hadn't slept in days, and he was just like rolling on the floor, making weird noises and just like crazy. He was crying and screaming, and he just rolled like he was a nutty one, and he never came back. Another one who was actually higher up in the echelon, when we relieved him, it became apparent after the second or third time, his eyes looked like bloodshot. He hadn't slept in days. And come to find out, he didn't sleep at the trailer anymore. He slept over at the caretaker's house. The double wide looked like a pigsty. He hadn't even taken the trash out in 2 weeks. It was filthy, and he was just babbling non-coherently at all. He later claimed PTSD and ultimately got let go from Bigelow Aerospace and BAASS, and that happened to a lot of them. They came up, they went nuts, they got fired or laid off or whatever, however they phrased it. So it happened more than once. It happened a lot of times.
And isn't that interesting? And it's interesting when you look at some of the people that have, maybe been up investigating around the area, and things, how they've apparently, had some sort of break as well. I mean, there is something that is taking place there, and it is, what it is, I don't know, but it certainly seems to be a disruptive thing. I think both you and Bartel have mentioned numerous times how beautiful and sacred that land is, and it's unfortunate that there could potentially be some sort of experimentation going on. You look at the property, you look at the old homestead, you look at the power lines, you look at maybe some of the places that there could be technology that was hidden, or you look at the fact that there were maybe multiple people that were deployed. I've mentioned Jacques Vallée in his diary, the latest diary that he came out with, Forbidden Science. He talks about mentioning to Bigelow back in the NIDS days, from my recollection, that there should be an alternate surveillance that is monitoring the ranch from the outside, which is really interesting. So were you guys set to the ranch, one or two of you, with obviously no other security? You're out in the middle of nowhere where you've got a lot of things that could come into play. But then, you're just being monitored to see how you are behaving. You look at the reports that are coming in. Are you going to specific areas and behaving like A, B, C, and D? I mean, it appears more and more to me, especially given you did not have any equipment on the ranch, that you absolutely, all of you were guinea pigs. Let's talk a little bit about the one time that you remember actually a scientist stepping foot on the property. Jason Vigato came up there and he set up a series of computers. Tell us again, you've mentioned this, but again, I want to put this thread together for everybody. Where specifically did that take place? Tell me about that, how that unrolled.
Homestead 2. He had 7 or 8 laptops that he brought up from Vegas, and they were all daisy chained, and there was at the end of the daisy chain some sort of a recording device that would measure pulse, electromagnetic pulse or frequency, and they were all fully charged. I mean, we had them plugged in all over the place, and they were all, documented before the experiment that they were, in fact, fully, charged. Took them out there, hooked them up, and typically for the first 30 seconds, nothing would happen. They would all idle at baseline. And then all of a sudden, it would indicate a spark that was off the chart. I mean, you could see it. It went above the graphic display. I mean, it just, and then right after, all computers signed off.
And so let me ask you what his initial response was when he saw that happening.
He was extremely surprised. There was a 4-letter word. And he was like, I don't even know what just happened. And so we went back, charged him back up again, went back out, did the same thing, about the same location. And then we kind of went into the pasture a little bit and went up into the corral area of the old Homestead 2 garage building. Same thing would happen. I mean, it happened. We did this, I think, 3 or 4 days in a row. And I don't know, it takes like 5 hours to charge them things. So we did it twice a day, and it would bring the same result every single time. So, and in the end, there was, as far as I know, no specific reading, because it would just blow up the computers and then the batteries were gone. All of them.
Isn't that amazing? And we know that, there are specific places on the ranch where you hear these the stories about the battery drainage. You can't get a cell connection, different things. It's really interesting. I know that Ryan Skinner, and I want to just give a shout out, a big hug to both he and Ashley. They lost their home in a fire while he was at a conference, and my love and prayers go out to them. But he had mentioned similar types of things. And in one sighting on the Paracast, he was talking about kind of a rotating light that he saw. And I hope that at some point in time I can get him on the show. And the fact that he was with another person, they were taking video and photographs of this, and all of that disappeared right after. And that was quite curious. But he also, I think, has had times where he did not feel good after being around what was happening at the ranch. I know for me, I went out there about a year and a half ago in September, from my recollection, and I interviewed Junior Hicks, and then I set up my camera equipment so I had a good access point of the ranch. And there was a lightning storm coming in, and a series of events that happened there that were very odd to me. And I look back on everything and some of the photographs that I took, and I came back from that, and so did the person I was with, and we couldn't move. I was on the couch for 3 or 4 days. I was absolutely drained. I was sick. I felt like I was in a complete fog, and I think to this day there's still some lingering maybe effects from that and things, and you just wonder, again, like you say, at the end of the day, what were you exposed to, and why is my printer going off and my cat continually coming around? I don't know, but these are the live sounds that you get as you are with Erica Lukes here on KCOR.
So what you just said, same thing happened to all of us. When we came back, we were out for a good 2 or 3 days, and it was funny because aerospace actually accounted for that and actually gave us. We came back on Wednesday nights or early Thursday morning, and then we usually didn't show back up to work until Monday. In order to recuperate from the ranch. That was something we all shared. And one more thing that I had mentioned prior, I always carried 2 compasses with me, a electric one and then just a magnetic north manual compass. And several times at Homestead 2 again, same location, I had both compasses spin 360 out of control. First slow, then so fast that you couldn't see the dial. I mean, the actual, not the dial, but the
needle.
The needle. It was spinning at crazy speeds. I actually videotaped it. I took pictures of it, sent them back to BAASS. They thought that was, and that's why we all carried compasses, in order to measure outside interference. It was a directive actually by BAASS to carry compasses, and I did it religiously because I knew if my compass goes crazy, there's something that I probably should be aware of.
Right, and that's the same thing that Junior Hicks has said time and time again, that he was told by some of the higher-ups that the second he saw his compass spinning that he needed to get out of the location, because that meant, according to these people, that there was a portal opening up and that he said he could potentially disappear forever. So, quite curious, isn't it? And I want to just, talk a little bit about, we go back to the OSAP contract and some of the things that were written up, and one of them was pulse power-based weaponry. That we look at EM pulses, and they are short bursts of electromagnetic energy, and it interferes. It's very disruptive to electronic equipment. It can cause damage to physical objects. It's quite interesting. And then I want to just read a little bit of this article, EM Bomb Effects, from Tom Harris on How Stuff Works. And it says the United States is drawn to EMP technology because it is potentially non-lethal, but it is still highly destructive. An E-bomb attack would leave buildings standing and spare lives, but it could destroy a sizable military. The range of possible attack scenarios: low-level electromagnetic pulses would temporarily jam electronic systems. More intense pulses would corrupt important computer data. And I just mentioned what happened with Ryan Skinner and some of the other files that have disappeared. Very powerful bursts would completely fry electric and electronic equipment. In modern warfare, the various levels of attack could accomplish a number of important points for combat missions without racking up any casualties. For example, an E-bomb could effectively neutralize vehicle control systems, targeting systems on the ground and on missiles and bombs, communication systems, navigation systems, long and short-range sensor systems. And so there you have it. And interestingly enough, like I said, for the OSAP contract, that was one of the papers that was generated. Pulse power-based weaponry. How certain people in the United States tend to completely overlook that in favor of the UFO narrative that is being put forward by people that have a vested interest in covering up what truly is going on. It's amazing to me. I mean, do you feel, as we progress through this, we learn more and more, we have more people coming to us with information and serious questions. And like I said, this has garnered worldwide attention, as it should. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, you're obviously looking back now and going through the interactions that you had with people that you were working for and some of the scenarios that you were put in. I mean, what are your thoughts today, Chris? Because I know that it's been a constant evolving process for you.
Erica, it's no longer just thoughts. There were thoughts when we started looking into this, when we started exploring this whole issue. It's no longer thoughts. The more documenting paperwork that we have received from sources that are not connected to one another, that all tend to say the same thing, now to the point where there is direct mentioning of systems that are most likely have been tested at Skinwalker Ranch, companies that may have been subcontracted to conduct testing. It's no longer a thought process. It is more and more a process of learning and digesting the information. And if I bounce back and if I look back to the ranch days and I compare, also not just by memory, I mean, I got about 300 or so reports that I have written. We have another at least double that from authors. And so if you compare reports, if you compare similarities, if you compare what people have experienced and you bounce that against the effects of the alleged weaponry being tested, it becomes a picture that is getting more and more clear. It is no longer a matter of I believe or I'm thinking or I am suggesting, or it is becoming more and more a picture of, okay, I understand how this all interconnects, and I'm getting a pretty good idea, as you are, what's actually taken place. And
right, and I agree. I mean, it is pretty stupefying to see and to see some of the narratives that were inserted in the myths that were created, or some of the perhaps factual events that were manipulated to stir up this narrative. And like I mentioned, when you go back and you look at the Skinwalker narrative, I mean, that really truly was not put forward until the late 90s. And then you have, all sorts of things. And I've mentioned before in Hunt for the Skinwalker, Jeremy Corbell's movie, there's a scene where he's interviewing a Native American family, and the mother is convinced, I think she's also being a little coaxed a little bit, that her son was injured by a UFO, and the son seems a little bit more skeptical. But to me, to see how people in this community and the surrounding areas have been affected, and how they've been led to believe that the health injuries are being sustained because of UAP or UFOs, I think that is, let's get back to logic here.
There's more to this, because I'm not sure if people know this or not, but BAASS did investigate cases that were not only on the ranch, but in the surrounding neighborhood of the ranch. I conducted several investigations with people that were bordering, and some of them not so close bordering, but bordering the ranch, and that contacted us, or that I've come in contact with. And it's interesting to see that the same effects that were taking place on the ranch were taking place on properties that were 4 miles, 5 miles away from the ranch. And it's interesting that these people complained about the very same physiological effects. It wasn't just a ranch. The ranch was the hot spot. It was like the epicenter of it. But there were things conducted, or maybe the weaponry reached out to a certain perimeter. But I've talked to plenty of people and I investigated plenty of people, and it was interesting because BAASS spent the time to actually transcribe all my interviews, some of them hour and a half long, 2 hours long, and wanted follow-ups and another follow-up with that person, and specific questions that now I followed up on via BAASS requests. So they were looking for something very specific, and especially people that were surrounding the area that didn't live on the ranch, that had no idea about aerospace or Bigelow or BAASS or whatever. They were just living there and experiencing. That's what a really big topic was for BAASS. Find people that are on the outside, and what do they experience? And that happened more than once, like I said.
Well, I mean, and I'm sure that it will be promoted by, people on the payroll or whatever, people that have had their egos manipulated to, people will say, as we've seen, there are some quote unquote journalists who are saying that this is, all about UAP, and we've got yada, 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 and that there are physical effects and dangers from UAP. But it's like I said, let's get back to reality, because in all likelihood, it doesn't have anything to do with UAP. And this is another cover story. And we have to, what is the most likely scenario? We have much more evidence, and including the solicitation sheet for OSAP and some of the what you've seen produced there and the people involved. This really was weapons testing, and had to do with, advanced technologies, not necessarily UFOs. So we've got to start asking hard questions, and we've got to turn to people who have infiltrated the community and are now working for mainstream media outlets promoting this propaganda again. It's like, okay, hey, instead of discrediting what somebody's saying about this or saying it's this is lumping it in with this alien conspiracy of underground bases or certain things, perhaps we got to do our due diligence as not only a journalist, but as a human being. Because, like I said, this is much bigger than, this isn't the Mary Kay Cosmetics Club where we can just sit around and, we can, hey, we're going to have a potluck dinner and talk about UFOs. These are people's lives that are in peril. People's lives have been affected emotionally, potentially physically, and we have a job as a human being to make sure that we step up and do the right things and not acquiesce to the powers that be or people that can stroke your egos. This is serious.
Well, let me ask you this. How much have you heard from the late self-proclaimed grandfather of Skinwalker Ranch lately?
You know what, we haven't. But anyway, so we've got to go because the show is up, and so I just want to say, this is explosive. Please share this. Please get the information out. I want to thank Northern UFOs. I want to thank Tina Marie. She rocks. I love her new website. And Brian Skinner, my blessings and thoughts are for you and your family. I'll be back next week, and you can make sure I'll be doing a lot of research in between now and then. Stick around for Willie Miranda. Have a great night.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from